Hi everyone, my name is Miriam Grant. I work in the asset management function in Irish Water and I'm currently involved in the preparation and programming of the National Water Resources Plan. Today I'll talk through what the plan is, the process we use to develop it, and I'll focus on the challenges that lie ahead and I suppose our plan for the next couple of months with publication of the different phases. The National Water Resources Plan is a 25-year strategy to ensure we have a sustainable, secure and reliable drinking water supply for everyone. It also allows us to incorporate in government policy and legislation to ensure that we are, planning appropriately for our existing and future asset base. There's also a key focus on environmental impact, how we need to understand the hydrological yield of our existing sources to ensure that we have enough water available to meet demand over the next 25 years. We need a plan like this, not only because it's standard practice in other water utilities, but we need to ensure that we're developing a strategy that aligns with key policy. So this includes Project Ireland 2040, the River Basin Management Plan, also the EU Water Framework Directive, which will strongly influence what water bodies we're abstracting from. We need to ensure that we're incorporating the standards set out in the directive into our plan. The plan also sets out a clear approach and target level of service, and for this reason, it's key that we align the plan with the strategic aims set out in the Water Services Strategic Plan, which was adopted by Irish Water and approved by the Minister in 2015. A key aim of the plan is to ensure that we can provide a resilient water supply to every water resource zone nationally and all designed to the same level of service. However, currently, under normal conditions, about 57% of our water resource zones are in deficit. And what this means is we cannot meet average day demand or allow for any uncertainty like a burst water main or a pollution incident. Under this scenario, we allow for headroom allowance, and this is to manage any of that day-to-day risk. Under drought conditions, about 66% of our water resource zones are at risk of deficit. So this means that we cannot meet demand when it's usually at its highest and at a time when supply is usually most limited. This is particularly an issue in the eastern and southern regions. A sustainable water supply is all around environmental compliance, and this all comes back to the Water Framework Directive, how it will influence where we're abstracting, but also how much we're taking. We have about 290 surface water sources in Irish Water that provides 83% of our supply. When you apply the most stringent WFD standards, this is 5 to 10% of the Q95 for rivers, or between 5 and 10% of the Q50 for our lake abstractions. About 50% of these surface water abstractions may not comply with WFD abstraction standards. In comparison, our groundwater abstractions provide 17% of our supply, but again, they have a lot of issues, particularly during these critical periods, but we haven't fully, got monitoring capability to do the same analysis as it's much more complex. I'd like to focus on the process for developing out the National Water Resources Plan now. It's really in two phases, the first being identifying the need at water resource zone level, and the second is all about developing out the preferred approach to satisfy that need. The first step in identifying the need is done at water resource zone level, and this is really the area where supply and demand is largely self-contained. In Irish Water, we have adopted the source to tap principle, and we're committed to developing out drinking water safety plans for every zone across the country. In terms of water quality risk, we have a systematic approach to manage that risk, really starting with source protection, followed by appropriate treatment barriers, and then focusing on the integrity of the water supply. There are 8 treatment barriers. One of these, for example, would be the maintenance of the microbiological barrier within the distribution system. So this ensures that we have enough disinfection in the system to cover the whole supply system. In terms of quantity, this is really all around your supply-demand balance. On the supply side of things, you start with your hydrological yield, and this is either limited by your water treatment capacity or your sustainable abstraction. We apply an outage allowance for larger water resource zones greater than 10 megalitres a day, and we also bring in climate change impacts over the 25-year design horizon. On the demand side, demand is built up of accounted for water. We have this growing over time in line with the national planning framework. Unaccounted for water then is decreasing over time because this has the leakage targets set by the business built into it. When we're designing, we have 4 different scenarios. These are weather scenarios to, I suppose, deal with any fluctuations you might experience over a year. These 4 scenarios include the normal year annual average, and this is just a typical normal weather year. Your dry year annual average then is a year where you typically might see higher demands, and this is really down to having a lower annual average rainfall. Your dry year critical period then represents a drought period. So this is a time where demand is at its highest and supply is usually most limited. And then your winter critical period is a design period where you'd see high demand use. So this is down to freeze thaw events that will increase leakage, and also people running their taps to prevent them from freezing. This is generally a time when your limitations are normally with your infrastructure. The next stage then is really all about developing out solutions. So the NWRP has a 3-pillar approach when we look at, how do we meet the deficits over the next 25 years. The first one is lose less, and this is all around reducing leakage. So we have the 2021 leakage target set by the business built into our supply-demand balance, and the plan is then post this for the NWRP to really target the areas where there are large deficits and particularly where there's yield issues. The use less pillar then really focuses on improving efficiency, and this is really all around conservation. The data for this we don't really have yet, and it hasn't been built into the model, but it's envisaged that in future iterations we'll have that data. A lot of work is being done in this area across the business. That's through green schools, water conservation campaigns during the summer months, and through programs like water stewardship, where water conservation is promoted in businesses across the country. The final pillar then is around supply smarter. So this isn't about increasing abstractions from the environment, but it's about reconfiguring our supply systems to ensure that we're abstracting the right amounts from the right places at the right time of year. So we take all of this and we bring that into the full options assessment, and this is really our new options appraisal methodology. Once you've identified the need at water resource zone level, you come up with a list of unconstrained options. So this is developed in-house and with the local authority colleagues. And really it's, you want to consider anything at this stage. So looking at new surface water and groundwater abstractions, desalination plants, effluent reuse, or just simple network upgrades that could partially or fully meet those deficits. All of these unconstrained options then are brought through a screening process. So this is a process that is carried out by a team of technical experts, including hydrogeologists, hydrologists, ecologists, environmental and scientists, and engineers. And all of these options are screened for the criteria of resilience, feasibility, flexibility, progressibility, and environmental acceptability. All options that come through this process are deemed to be feasible, or else they're screened out. And any feasible option is then handed over to our in-house modelling team, who develop out an outline design, and all of these options are costed in our investment planning system in Irish Water. The approach appraisal then is really the final step, where you take all of your multi-criteria analysis, you have all the information now, and you look at your best environmental option, your least cost, your most resilient, and a preferred approach workshop is carried out to really select your best preferred option based on best judgment. This is really a continuous feedback and monitoring piece. It's not rigid, and as new information is received, it's all brought back into the plan. Groundwater has a huge role in Irish water and its supplies. As I said, we have about 800 individual groundwater abstractions, and this contributes to about 17% of the national supply. I said limestone rock type is predominant in the Midlands and the South and West, and this is predominantly where most of our groundwater abstractions are. We have a wide range of types, ranging from what you see here. So Lough Goole would be a big lake source that supplies Mullingar, but it's a complex groundwater fed lake. Tubrid Spring also supplies Mill Street in Cork, and this is known as a holy well in the local community. We have a number of significant well fields in Portlaoise, Tullamore, Mountmellick, South Kilkenny and Clonmel, but the majority then of our groundwater abstractions will be single boreholes supplying small areas. Irish Water is committed to improving reliability and quality of our supplies, and this is through continued work on programs and projects. An example of a program would be the National Disinfection Program. This involves assessing every water treatment plant and upgrading disinfection systems where necessary, and to date, 240 sites have had upgrades. Projects at site level are continuously underway as well within Irish Water. Between 2014 and 2019, we supported growth in Ireland by constructing 11 new water treatment plants, upgrading 36, and we've laid over 1,900 kilometres of new or rehabilitated water main. I suppose some projects that reference the supplies I talked about in the slide before would be the upgrade of the Port Lomond water treatment plant, so where the Lough Goole source is. This would have been upgraded, removing it from the EPA remedial action list. And for Mill Street Spring in Cork, we would have installed a UV treatment to really fight against the risk of cryptosporidium for that water supply. I suppose to ensure continued investment in the right assets, we need to develop a strategy that sets out the roadmap for how we will operate, maintain and invest in new assets, and this must align with key national policies in order to deliver the best service we can to our customers. These plans obviously include Project Ireland 2040, the national the River Basin Management Plan, the Water Framework Directive, the National Adaptation Plan, and the Recast Drinking Water Directive. The recent drought period would have highlighted a lot of vulnerabilities with our existing sources as well. And again, this highlights the importance of good strategic planning to ensure that we are investing in sustainable sources. Particularly for groundwater, it highlighted how we need to really understand the capacity of our aquifers. And that's really through increased modelling and field verification, validation, and increased collaboration with other organisations like the GSI and the EPA. The full options assessment that will be complete as part of the NWRP will endeavour to, propose a preferred approach for every water resource zone nationally to meet the deficits that have been outlined. For groundwater, this assessment is really based on the best information we have from the GSI. The original methodology, would have been drafted by Malcolm Doak, who left us back in March, with help from Michelle Wong of Tobin's and Terry Hayes of AWN. We now have 2 new hydrologists from Tobin's in carrying out these assessments, so Darren Clark and Duncan Hartwick, and they're really developing out the options at the initial stage and bringing these through the screening process with Corin Kelly overseeing this assessment. So we're fully aware that as information is coming in, we need to be updating this methodology, with work like the GSI is doing with the detailed assessments on resource capacity within the surface water catchments. As information like this is made available, we'll be bringing that into the plan and incorporating it in. I suppose we have big challenges ahead. As I stated previously, with this in the supply-demand balance, we have identified, big deficits under your normal year annual average scenario. And this will require us to look at new supplies, but also really focus on driving demand over the next 25 years, driving down demand. In terms of environmental sustainability, again, this is all around the Water Framework Directive. A draft bill proposing abstraction licensing was published in the summer of 2018, and this is to align with the standards set out in the directive. This will require at least 18% of our abstractions to be licensed, and it could have immediate problems, with our existing supplies, where we'll have to reconfigure operations, look for alternative supplies, and really focus on driving down demand. I suppose the issues were really hit home in the last few summer months, years where we experienced drought issues during the summer months. We had to sandbag a lot of our rivers to maintain levels at the abstractions. Obviously, this had knock-on environmental impacts and impacts on fisheries. In terms of resilience, we're designing for that 1 in 50-year level of service, but again, less than 50% of our water resource zones are achieving this. It can be as bad as a 1 in 2-year level of service that we're experiencing in the GDA. Again, this is a huge challenge going forward. In terms of quality, again, 50% of our water resource zones are at risk of delivering non-compliant water. We're investing heavily in an investment program on a prioritized basis to deal with these issues as they arise. Finally, I want to finish on, I suppose, the plan structure and I suppose the phases that will be going out at the end of this year. So the first phase is really the framework plan. So this will include the methodology along with a case study area to, I suppose, set out how the methodology looks with a real life example. So the draft framework plan, SCA and NWRP impact statement will be going out for statutory consultation over an 8-week period. And after this will allow us to adopt the framework plan, incorporating in all of that feedback, the SCA statement and the AA determination. Phase 2 then will kick off where we'll deliver the plan, and this will be delivered on a regional basis. So a regional plan will be published for the Northwest, Southwest, Southeast and Eastern and Midlands. Again, the technical report will be published, SCA and the NWRP impact statement for an 8-week consultation period, and following this, the regional plans can be adopted. As with a closer look at the phase 1 of the NWRP, it's really all about the methodology and assessing the need for quality, quantity, and reliability. It will also go into detail on the methodology for developing the preferred approach. So this is the full options assessment, focusing in on the methodology around core screening and fine screening, the approach appraisal, preferred approach selection, and the continuous monitoring and feedback required to deliver the plan. It will also deliver the assessment of need, and this is at a water resource zone level. So I suppose the quality, quantity, and reliability deficits for each water resource zone will be published. So this is going to be towards the end of this year. Next year then, the phase 2 regional plans will start to be published. So these will include the application of the framework methodology to the regional group areas that you see there on the map. So we have 4 regional group areas. Again, this is a continuous process. It's not a static or rigid plan. It's continuously updated in-house and published every 5 years and will feed directly into our 5-year investment plan. There's a lot of information there, and I hope I can answer some of your questions today. If you require any other information, there's some on our website at water.ie/NWRP, but you can also email the team at nwrp@water.ie. Thank you very much for your time.